for delivery, but the fee for delivering an IM injection isn't very high. I mean, it's just it's lost in the calculations here. The other thing, though, and then we haven't had a big discussion about this, is that the patient's co-insurance may differ, right? And so the patient's contribution could be higher under one benefit or the other, which means that our contribution is lower. Yes. For those, right? So that might, in this case, all these contributions from the patients are fairly high, but they go away after the first couple of months. So they don't...
Except under D.
Except under D. But in the commercial plans, it's probably not enough of what the patient's putting in doesn't really matter because everybody hits their out-of-pocket max at some point, and then we put in the rest. So it kind of comes out in the wash. For us, it doesn't matter how much they put in, but it can matter to them. Right, as Gary pointed out, the first couple of months can be kind of painful, and maybe they would prefer a lower price there. So that's something else to take into account. But because they hit their out-of-pocket max, our contribution is going to be the same. Regardless, if they put in 25% or they put in 30%, it doesn't matter because they're not going to hit 25% of the full annual cost. They're not going to hit 30% of the full annual cost of the drug because the out-of-pocket max is a set dollar amount.
I would agree with that, with the exception of our out-of-pocket was 10.5. And I think that's almost
no. We corrected it. It was $7,350, and then double that per family.
14.
To 14.7. Yeah. So it was basically small enough that we would feel most of the pain.
In a regime like this, where it was complicated, how much does the specialty pharmacy versus buy and bill direct which benefit you put it under? Is it just a consideration, or is it a driving consideration?
Well, most of the specialty pharmacies will administer the claim like a buy and bill claim because they're set up to process claims through our medical claims processing system or pharmacy, so they can direct it to medical.
Yeah. So it's kind of a non-issue then.
I think.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know. And then for any time we were requiring step, I think we want to make sure that we're clear. Is that anything that's within the guidelines, or do we anticipate lowest cost regimen? How do we expect those steps to work?
I
Whatever
think
the
we would
guidelines.
anything include anything.
So it's just whatever's
Right. Yeah, we're not trying to manage this for cost like that because we have to deal with the guidelines.
And then there's always got to be one gotcha question. So
we need it.
Try us.
Yeah,
Try us. Bring it.
I'm hoping.
We're going to put Gary in charge of organizing
So
the answer
I don't want to go too deep here, but on 1C, we mentioned that we would have 2 steps, but Centuza is more expensive and doesn't have any steps currently in terms of management. So how would that work? Or is there a reason why that's the case? Erica does. I think I got her. She got the smile.
No, I think that's what I put in my... Can we look at my recommendations?
Yeah, let's look at Erica's
Let's see.
first.
I have to remember. Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we do have double step. Okay.
Yeah, but we're not necessarily telling to step through that particular product.
Why? I guess my point is, why is that product's more costly? Why is that product not subject to step?
What was the cost
Can you go
difference?
back?
Yeah.
We're going to amend our plan.
I guess we could think
Centuza's around $42,000.
Right, but I think it's sort of where we are in the market today versus where we were in the market when these products were coming out, and I just think maybe that's probably why.
So almost like if Centuza were to enter today, it might face the same level of
I
restrictions.
would say probably yes.
So it's more of a function of the maturity.
Because we said that with the add-on, right? Mm-hmm. That the first product, we said we were going to start stepping or prior off or whatever it was because of the price point. So, and you saw the product, the IM, the infusible today has a prior off.
Yep. That's all I had.
Right. So I want to go back to just sort of thinking about the entire day. We've got other products. Are there any things that anyone wanted to bring up about the other products we discussed today that you thought of later or we didn't get to? I cut you off inadvertently, or anything else that happened that you'd like to bring up about the particular products?
Well, the one that was the most difficult to try to figure out where it would fit in is probably that second one.
Okay.
because it sort of blended in with everything else.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The first one had a sort of niche, right, multi-drug resistant.
Yeah,
This one
patients
sort of has a
are-
niche, patients adherence issues.
Uh-huh.
That middle one was kind of like maybe the least impressive, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Comparable efficacy, comparable safety, pretty similar pricing.
Probably just not an unmet need for it, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's just trying to figure what unmet need was it, what is it filling?
If you could try to come up with a clinical benefit for this over anything else, could you?
I think the laboratory abnormalities versus the 3-drug combo is a differentiator.
Right. Depending on
Renal
renal and bone,
markers.
depending on what that really looks like, we'd have to like see the numbers.
For certain
but-
patients.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I think in Jaluka, the two-drug regimen, why are we going back to 2 drugs? And there's a small cost offset. Is it economics that can make benefit design? If you've been stable on antiviral or suppressed, now we're going to switch over to 2-drug for a cost-effective benefit? Or is it because you're aging into that comorbid disease and you have too many drug-drug interactions
Yes.
and DUR
Yeah,
edits?
that's another niche.
Carrie, that's a question. You know, it does seem like there is a trend back a little bit
To the
towards some 2-drug.
2-drug.
What's driving that in terms of the guidelines at this point? Are you
I think
How do you feel about that?
less toxicity,
okay?
it would be the number one.
That not all patients require.
But then
2
again,
drugs?
going back to 2 drugs, we start needing to worry more about if you select some resistance and you're not monitoring that.
Yeah.
So the monitoring may need to be revved up a little bit.
And you may want to save the 3-drug for in case there is resistance building up, then you want to go to that 3rd drug again, so it's kind of...
Yeah, but
So that
then you can't
changes the
use, but
paradigm.
then you've got to find 2 new drugs.
Right.
So you can't really use the say the 3TC in that circumstance anymore.
Yeah, because the idea of going to 3 drugs was to avoid this whack-a-mole approach of, like we're doing 2, oops, they popped up. The idea was you go to 3 and it's less likely to see the resistance pop up or it takes longer.
And there's some drugs, I mean, if I had to say what drug do I want to make sure I see no resistance to, it would be these later generation, integrase inhibitors.
Yeah, PTG.
And so if, let's say, it became resistant to 3TC or a 2-drug, you didn't pick it up for a while, then you develop resistance to the single agent that was still working. Now you got nothing, and there may be some class issues. So you don't want to lose that class of integrase inhibitors. I mean, that's really, I think, what's revolutionized things in the last 4 or 5
Yeah,
years.
I mean, the guidelines seem pretty keen on the future for like 2-drug combos with an INSTI.
We're even looking at the 3rd study that we did. We're really, I don't know that we would even be doing that if it wasn't an integrase inhibitor in there. We're not looking at a boosted PI
Right.
on course. But I think we're looking at something that may be very revolutionary in terms of this Q2 week or the Q2 month treatment. Why are we able to treat Q2 months? And maybe that's going to go turn around and make us really rethink even the once-a-day treatments, that maybe we don't need to go once a day. Maybe we can actually go every 3rd day if you can give an IM injection in the last 2-4 weeks. I'm just really interested to see what follows up with this.
The problem with every 3rd day would be, I bet you adherence would dive.
The way.
Adherence would dive.
Too hard to
Yeah, but I
Way
think,
too high
I
to
think
keep going.
personally the adherence problem that people are having is not that they're missing 1 or 2 doses. I think they're just kind of stopping and not telling
We
them.
don't know, I guess.
So they're not taking anything
Sure, it's a mix, yeah.
for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And so if they're an adherent patient, and let's say they're going every other day with single dose, if once every 2 months is working, then I've got to think that these drugs have enough half-life going on that maybe they don't. I mean, I don't know the
You
answer
tolerate
to
some
that.
non-adherence.
But, I look at my patients with cocci-meningitis, which is one of the main things I treat. When I see these relapses, the first tip-off is they're not asking for refills. And the relapse there is horrific, because now we're starting with real bad meningitis again. And a high percentage of those people die. Then when I talk to the spouses, I often find that, they're not taking any of their medication. It's not like they're missing a few doses. And I think adherence with the antiretroviral is the same thing. There's a huge spectrum from the patient that's missing an occasional dose and nothing's happening to them versus the person that's just didn't want to take, they get so nauseated with the idea they're going to take this medication, and they're now feeling well, they're claiming that I'm only sick because of the meds. And that non-adherent patient is the one that gets in trouble.
Sounds like we need to know more about these patterns of patient adherence and non-adherence.
Yeah. I say, well, the thing is, we as providers, we really don't know. But I often depend on the spouse. The other day I had a patient who has disseminated cocci to his thoracic spine. And talking with him, he was taking his medications. Talking with his mother, because I talked to her privately. And she said, no way. And now we're seeing his titers are bumped up and all the other factors that were going on. So his telling me I'm missing occasional dose, and his mother telling me he's hardly taking it at all. So they fall into the same category of non-adherence.
I have just a couple questions.
Before we wrap up, we need to find out if there's any other questions.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the Q1M dosing and the Q2M dosing should be at parity. Ideally, that's what you'd like to see. Are there any other areas that the manufacturer should focus on, given the 3 products that we talked about? Are there any other things you want them to consider? So if we go through the first product Y, anything there that you want to recommend to them? That was the one for the
Honestly, it's really about trying to identify the appropriate patients. Help us identify who sort of fits.
Yeah.
Where's the unmet need?
It sounded like we wanted to see more breakout of the baseline therapies. Are there
Right.
certain therapies where we should be concerned about starting this in combination or not?
Yeah, where it works better or doesn't work as well.
And are there ways of measuring, for us as clinicians, can we easily order blood levels on any of these drugs through the company that manufactures them, or what specialty labs may be out there for us?
Anything else for the I know you said the second product didn't really fit an unmet need. The last regime we talked about, anything other than price parity? Anything else they should be thinking about?
I think probably just one other note I was going to make is the administration is proposing several changes to payment for drugs under Part B for Medicare. So that would be relevant to these medical injectables, right? They're looking at potentially like an international price index, changing to, a more average cost, going away from ASP-based payment. So it's probably important for the manufacturer to be following in the future what comes of that. A lot of it is open for it's public comment right now. So we should know more next year. But that might influence some of their pricing decisions because the vast majority of this is going to be under the medical benefit. And if it happens in Medicare, it's possible that it follows suit on our commercial Medicaid coverage.
So if there's a pricing basket that Medicare, that this products have to fall, like a country basket or something similar like they do in Europe?
Or if they're looking at international pricing, how's it going to be priced? Is it going to launch internationally?
The international price index would be an interesting thing. This is, should we put that into effect?
Right, whether it goes anywhere, I think we could debate, but I don't know.
Yeah, it takes a market, it takes a basket, it takes a look at the pricing across multiple, other Western nations essentially, and says, okay, here's an average, a weighted average of that price. That's the price that we're going to pay. Basically, what it does then is it assumes that we're taking whatever what their health technology assessment group said it was worth, and without doing our own, right? And so it's a sort of a poor man's version of doing that. And so that will be, so that raises issues of like which countries do you want to launch in first? Do you want to launch in the U.S. first so there is no international reference price? And then you basically are sort of just like dealing with other U.S. prices, or or do you want to find like, the most generous Western European country to launch in first? Do you want to not launch in Germany first?
Right.
Certainly you don't want to launch in the UK first.
Right.
Yeah, so that creates a
You don't want to go to India, that's for sure.
Well, some of the countries that have the most burden for HIV, right, would probably not be the countries where you
Those are not the
financially
countries
want
that
to
were,
launch first,
yeah,
but
they're
they
not
have the
in the
greatest
price
need.
index, right? And the Congo is not in the price index. Right?
Erica, do we even know that the preliminary data on the IM injections is done in this country?
It
UK.
was
Wasn't it UK?
multi-country, I believe. I think I put it in. Let me check. Good question. It's not in the monograph. Multi-center.
Like we learned that a lot of the dolutegravir toxicity happened in studies in Botswana. We wouldn't have known about it had it not been studied there. So,
Well, Erica's looking that up. I have a question in general. To what extent do value frameworks or organizations like ICER weigh in on your decision making? I know the guidelines will weigh in heavily, but if they come out with, do you look at things like that for your recommendations or where placement?
Starting to in some areas.
Starting to.
MS. Right, taking a feel of it.
Yeah, I think we listen to it. I just read something yesterday that the asthmatic biologics are overpriced by 50%. But, we look at it, most of the time we look at it so that we can add on to our negative effect of a price. We don't generally use it for the positive values where it comes out and says something's
Right.
priced properly. So
Yeah,
we're kind of
like
using it
to
as a
build a case.
hammer right
Yeah,
now.
build a case.
But I think I hear more and more organizations saying that ICER is going to be much more in the future of what they have,
And I think
what they're going to look at.
PCSK9 referenced,
Exactly.
even the market's responding.
It seems the manufacturers are a little
Manufacturers
more
are-
concerned about ICER reports right now than
Yeah.
payers are.
But payers are one, they have been paying attention to them, to read them, and probably use a lot of the pieces, like what's the comparators, what are the key
Okay.
factors, what are the cost offsets that you would consider, not so much using the cost effectiveness. But now I think we're starting to see more people concerned about the cost effectiveness. One of the problems in the past is that most payers don't have the wherewithal to do a cost effectiveness analysis on their own. We don't have health economists on staff. There are positions in insurance companies called health economists, but they're basically computer analysts, right? They're not economists. And so doing those analyses, but having someone else do them, so for example, CVS has said that they now have some plans that an employer can elect where there's an upper limit of $100,000 for a poly based on ICER's report. And they won't put anything on formulary that goes over that. And, how many employers will take them up on this one, we don't know. But it's a possibility, but it's sort of, it's basically they're putting a toe in the water and saying, we're going to start looking at cost effectiveness.
And I guess to what extent would you look at that for employer-based versus maybe your health exchange, which is a different,
Well,
subsidized differently, right?
employer-based is easier to do,
Yeah.
because there's fewer restrictions on what employers do. And so you have, there's already a couple of small health plans where they do have, their tiering is based on cost effectiveness as opposed to the actual price of the drug. So it's not just, generics and preferred, non-preferred, but they basically say, okay, we've got these thresholds and the tiering is based on that, but they only do it for the employer-based plans because they're covered under ERISA, not under state rule. No one has yet taken a cost-effectiveness analysis-based plan or decision protocol for a insured product to a state insurance commissioner yet. We just don't know what's going to happen when that hits. Do they have the wherewithal to analyze these and decide they're okay? Do they think it's a good way to go? We don't know. We haven't heard from the states yet.
Sounds like Pitney Bowes all over again.
It is going a different route, but maybe the same.
2.0.
There you go.
He goes 2.0.
you bring up such a good point. In my own clinical practice over the years, I think the problem with the cost effectiveness is people like myself who treat patients and have no idea what the costs are. Mm-hmm. And we say, hey, that drug really wasn't of much benefit, but we don't know what was paid. Mm-hmm. And so the providers themselves who are writing for these prescriptions are clueless as to the cost, including, in my case, antibiotics that I use all the time. And I'm not aware that, as an example, Tigasil, which was $80, is now $580. You know what I'm saying? So we're so clueless ourselves in this that it's just incredible to me how many drugs we use today that have little or no benefit, or the toxicity outweighs the benefit, and we have no clue how much we're spending on it. And I think that's a real weakness. There's got to be some way, when we get, as an example, when we get the sensitivity panels on bacteria, maybe we should be seeing next to it what the cost of that drug is. And the pharmacists that I work with now, I think it's at the best level I've ever seen, because they're more and more willing to call me up and say, is there an alternative drug? And I might ask why. And they'll say, well, an equal drug costs 1/10 of what you just ordered. And that's really, to me, I think it's been the best feedback I've ever had in the last few years when I do get that call from the pharmacist. And then I can relay this to the docs that I'm seeing. Because there's so many things we're doing, so many medications, that we just don't know what we're spending. And we're the ones, it doesn't come out of our pocket directly, doesn't come out of the patient's pocket directly. Somebody's paying these enormous fees. And,
Everybody.
right, exactly.
Our clients.
It goes back to everybody.
Yeah,
right?
Medicare, Medicaid.
My healthy wife is paying $850 for the crappiest health plan you could imagine, with high deductible. We're afraid to use any of it.
Yeah.
So all we got out of it last year was a free flu shot. That was it.
Yep.
Did you?
I have an answer to the question.
Oh,
We're asking
please, go
about locations. So
Yeah.
50 sites in the U.S., Canada, Spain, France, and Germany.
Oh, so
55 France, U.S., Spain, and Germany.
Canada.
And Canada.
And speaking of Canada, actually, there is a Canadian source for understanding some of these issues that you have. They have a common drug review cabinet, and you can look at their website for the things they have reviewed. And because they disseminate that information to the provinces, so the provinces can make their coverage decisions.
I've never felt that the United States, when I did my fellowship, I don't think we're any better than any other country at doing these studies. It's a personal bias that we're not better. Not worse, not better.
All right,
Where are we?
we are done.
Okay.
I want to thank all of you so much.
Great job.
All right. How many more
You can leave all your
prisoners?
papers, I will collect them.
So it does not say how many were in prison.
Yep. I will collect them all.
That's
I
the
can do
other.
a keyword search, prison. but-
Yeah. Thank you so much. Exceeded our expectations, so thank you very much for the lively discussion.
When you can get Gary happy, you've exceeded
That was a
everything.
tremendous amount of effort.
Yeah, a lot of brain power.
Yeah.
Fun.
And we made Gary happy.
That's what we were talking about, down
So we're going back to the hotel.
Yeah, we'll give them that.
Our bags are here.
Are we going to the airport?
I think we just arrange transportation.
No, we're not, no.
We're doing our own?
You can do your own and just send us the receipt, send the receipt.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, I so appreciate it, yeah. Thank you very much.
Good job, too.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Good job.
You guys
Was this
made
your
it
first meeting,
easy.
Anthony?
Yep, I'll get invited back. You guys did such a great job.
Yeah, you guys are good.
Hey, you're great.
Yeah, good to see you again. and-
Yes, nice seeing you.
I think it's been a
Thanks.
while.
Yeah, say hi to John.
I will. Yeah.
Cool.
Sandra,
Nice to
so
meet
nice
you
to
all.
meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much for all your work.
Hey, great meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's been a big help.
Thank you so much.
For sure. Thank you for being here.
Ed, thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, Gary. Absolutely.
Zoe, are they able to get their stuff from the bathroom without? Yeah. The sponsors know to stay in, right? The room? Okay.
You got them locked in there, Dave?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much, Gary. Yes.
Yes.
I know we've spoken on the phone before. I think I've interviewed you a couple times, so it's nice to finally meet you in person.
Yes, indeed. All right.
All right, well, hopefully it's sunny out. I don't know what the weather's like, but
Who
hopefully
knows? That'd be
yeah,
good.
sunny
Yeah, it's
out.
probably getting dark.
2:30, I don't know. I was actually
No.
surprised. It's like dark in Canada by 4:30 now.
Yeah.
So it was nice being down here, 5 o'clock still light. All right, well, thank you so much. That was,
Thank you so
yeah,
much meeting you in person.
Nice
That's
meeting you.
great.
Yeah, that worked out very well. That was wonderful.
Stuff here.
Yeah, so you can keep it just in the back room? Okay.
You just get an Uber then. Thank you so much, guys. Safe travels.
The notes. And then maybe make sure we can read everyone's notes.
It's long, right? I was actually.
Sorry about the confusion.
It's longer than me.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Well, it's normal.
That was minor.
Stuff that Derek did things.
Actually, no, let's put all these together. Put all those together so you don't lose them. I think that worked well with the projector. That was really helpful,
travels.
have that projector and the extra computer.
Yes.
Nice job, team.
Yeah, that was so fun. So
Right?
informative.
Told you, these are super fun.
So
These are like
conversation.
my favorite things to do. These are the things where I learn the most because you really get all the inside baseball.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, here's
The inside
Lewis's.
baseball.
I'm just going to take the rest of their documents home just to shred them because it's confidential.
Right, yes.
I can take it back to the hotel, and the hotel, of course, if you want.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to
That's-
haul,
Yeah,
you don't
that'd be
want to
great.
haul all that.
Yeah, so we don't have to, yeah.
Those towels right along.
Like everything that we need. Do we want any notes? No, I don't think so. I think like this is just full scratch. Yeah.
5, 6, I'm missing, I
So it just looks funny.
think I'm missing Ed.
Oh, God, maybe it's, let's see. He definitely wrote one.
Missing Ed. Did he take it with him there?
No, he was pretty good about giving me everything, so let me just go. Through all these.
Yeah, if you want to just get a pile, I can haul everything back.
Okay.
These probably doesn't.
The
just
folders will
chunks.
just recycle.
Yeah, the folders we can probably recycle. Can we get the little name tags off them or no? I wouldn't worry too much about it.
I'm a professional.
Look at that. You are being paid. So that's I think, the technical definition for professional. Although everybody knows you don't get paid on your birthday. It's a rule.
Is this a 2-thread pile?
Yeah.
Have we found
Yeah,
Ed's
I
bag?
just found it. And does everyone have a name on it?
1, 2, 3, 4.
So don't take them 6. Yeah, just make sure they're all up there.
You have all the ballots? You have
Yes.
everything?
All the ballots. You want all the paper?
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it right here. So the key on these things is just like, need a good chair, need a good clinical
Yeah.
process. Like,
Feels like a good representation of different viewpoints. Like that works out really well.
well, I think that's also what helps, is like when you have people that are good and people respect and like
Yeah.
engage.
Everybody knew each other, like all of
Oh
them.
yeah.
It's probably a small pair world.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty small.
It was really cute this morning when they were all greeting each other.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's funny.
They're all like very familiar with one another. I think Gary said he sees